Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Today here on the channel, I'm going to wrap up what is finally the end of the week number 1 in college football after the game last night between Boston College and Florida State. But first, I want to talk some NASCAR. Sunday night at Darlington was the final race of the regular season, and it was won by Chase Briscoe, who is now in the playoffs because of that win. Stewart-Haas Racing has not ran good at all this year, so seeing Chase Briscoe win was a surprise. I actually think Chase Briscoe is a very talented driver. Of course, we'll find out in the coming future since he has signed with a new team since Stewart-Haas Racing is shutting down. But he just hasn't ran good because Stewart-Haas as a whole, that whole organization has really not been any good in about 5 years. So seeing Chase Briscoe win was a surprise. But the 16 drivers who will battle for the championship are Ryan Blaney, Austin Cindric, Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Daniel Suarez, Ty Gibbs, Martin Truex Jr., Christopher Bell, Harrison Burton, Chase Briscoe, and Tyler Reddick. The playoffs will start this Sunday at 3 o'clock from Atlanta Motor Speedway. It is the Quaker State 400 presented by Walmart. Now, if I had to make a prediction on who I think will win it all, I'll say Tyler Reddick. Not just because he won the regular season championship, but he's been the most consistent all year long. William Byron, the last 2 years, has been the best driver on the track from February till about June, and then he just disappears. My man Kyle Busch was flat out awful until about the last 4 races of the regular season, but he was so far behind in the playoffs, he would have had to win to make it in, and he finished second this past race and second last week. So he was very, very close to getting that win, but if he would have ran anywhere near as good in the first 20 races as he ran the last 5 or 6, he would have made it in just on points and points alone. But he still wants to win a race this year to be the only driver to ever win at least one race 20 consecutive years. So again, the playoffs will start this Sunday at Atlanta Motor Speedway at 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Now let's wrap up what is finally the end of week number 1 in the world of college football. Sunday night we had USC and LSU. USC wins the game 27-20. Miller Moss, who is the new USC quarterback, was 27 of 36, 378 yards, and a touchdown. Garrett Nussmeier, who is the new LSU quarterback, was 29 of 38, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. And I won't hold the pick against him because it was late in the game, a handful of seconds left. LSU has the ball. He's just trying to make something happen because they were way out of throwing a Hail Mary. So I won't hold that against him. Outside of that, both quarterbacks played tremendous, but you can tell by the stats. Miller Moss had 2 fewer completions, but 74 more yards, which tells you his passes were more downfield. Garrett Nussmeier's passes were more the 3 and 4 yard dink and dunk, Tom Brady variety. But both quarterbacks were fantastic. But USC's problem the last couple of years has been their defense. Lincoln Riley has really never had a defense since he's been coaching. Oklahoma always sucked, and USC the last couple of years has sucked. But they look good on defense Sunday. If they can get anywhere close to the kind of defense this whole year they got on Sunday, they're going to be pretty good. I believe Miller Moss is the real deal. He's not a Caleb Williams, which is a shock because Lincoln Riley almost always has that mobile dual threat quarterback. That's not Miller Moss. That's also not Garrett Nussmeier. They're both the old-fashioned just drop back and throw the ball downfield quarterbacks. But LSU has now lost 5 consecutive first game of the season. 2020 they lost to Mississippi State. That was the year where you only played conference games. 2021 they lost to UCLA. Of course, the last 2 years was Florida State, and then Sunday night to USC. So 5 straight years LSU has lost their opening game and started out 0-1. Honestly, really, truly, I thought Sunday the game was pretty evenly matched, and since there wasn't a lot of turnovers, you can't blame LSU losing on turnovers. USC was just a little bit better because they could run the ball a little bit. LSU could not run the ball at all. So if you stop their passing game this year, they might be in trouble unless they find some sort of running game. But USC did a decent job of running the ball, which is why they won the game. But Brian Kelly did a post-game press conference, and to me it looked contrived. It looked like somebody told him, you go out there, do this press conference, and make it look like you're mad. Because at one time you could see him not knowing the camera was on him, and he kind of sort of had this smirk on his face, and then all of a sudden he sees the camera on him, and so it looked contrived, it looked fake, it looked like he wasn't upset, and he was told by somebody behind the scenes, make yourself look like you're upset. But most LSU fans already don't like Brian Kelly because he did that fake Southern accent, like he was from Louisiana when he took that job. And it's funny because everybody knows you're not a Cajun, so why even try to fake anybody out? But he did. So USC starts out 1-0. That was actually a pretty fair matchup. I think almost everybody has LSU at least 5th in the SEC behind Georgia, Alabama, Texas, and Oklahoma. And I think USC's probably about 5th in the Big Ten, according to most experts, behind Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. So you had about the 4th or 5th team in the Big Ten up against the 4th or 5th team in the SEC, which is about as pretty evenly matched as you can be, and USC was a little bit better. Now, last night we had Florida State, Boston College. Boston College wins the game 28-13. I believe the turning point of the game was Florida State getting the ball to start the second half. They were only down 1 possession, 14-6, and they've got a 4th and 5 from their own 47-yard line. And for whatever reason, Mike Norvell decided to go for it. Now, if it's fourth quarter, I understand. If you're down by 3 or 4 scores, I understand. But we're 3 minutes into the second half, and you're down by 1 possession. Your offense has not moved the ball all night long. You can't run the ball at all, and it's 4th and 5, and you're going for it. And Florida State throws a pick. Boston College scores on that drive, and that pretty much sealed the deal. But before the season started, I said Florida State would probably win 8 or 9 games because they were still going to be decent, but not near as good as they were last year. But I'm going to be wrong on that. Seeing their schedule now, they're a 6-6, 7-5 team. I had no idea their offensive line was going to be this bad. They can't run the ball at all. They couldn't run the ball against Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech was bottom 10 in the country last year stopping the run. Now, I'm sure Georgia Tech is going to make that number better this year, but it's not going to go from bottom 10 to top 10. So they're going to be an improved run defense, but not that much improved. They couldn't run the ball at all against Georgia Tech and could not run the ball at all last night against Boston College. And Florida State's defensive line is a hot pile of doo-doo. Now, somebody before the Georgia Tech game started saying that all of Florida State's defensive line is NFL first-round draft picks. Whoever said that and started that should be fired. And that's the biggest bunch of hogwash I ever heard in my life. They might have one, maybe two guys that might get drafted, but not in the first round, and not the entire defensive line. Their defensive line is awful. And when you can't block anybody on offense, so you can't run the ball, and you can't get to the backfield on defense, so you can't stop the run, your chances of winning are not very good. Now, I know everybody's going to blame DJ. He's the fallback guy because, he's played at Clemson. He played at Oregon State. Hey, let's just blame him. But if DJ would have played back in the 90s when football was a much slower-paced game, he would have been a game manager. He doesn't lose you games. He just doesn't win you games. He's going to go out there and do his job and nothing more. It's not like through 2 games he's thrown 5 picks and fumbled 5 times. He hasn't. He's just an average quarterback that goes out there and does his job. But when you can't run the ball at all and you lost every good receiver you had, DJ's not going to do anything. Whoever told DJ to go there is an idiot. If it was his dad, he needs to stop listening to his dad because DJ is only good if he has wide receivers. He doesn't make receivers better. Receivers make him better. Had he been at Florida State last year when they had Coleman and Wilson, he may have put up great numbers. But they lost their tight end and almost all their receivers. Why he chose to go there, I have no earthly idea. But Florida State's going to be 6-6, 7-5. You don't want to jump off cliffs after one game, which is what everybody does. If your team wins impressively, they're not losing. If they lose and lose badly, they're not winning. But they always say the most improvement teams make is from game 1 to game 2. So as bad as Florida State looked on the offensive line and the defensive line after Georgia Tech, you wanted to see it again to see if it's really that bad. Well, it's really that bad. Their offensive line is awful. They're not going to be able to run the ball the whole entire year. So it's going to be a long season for Florida State. They're off this week. They play Memphis next week. Don't be surprised if they lose that game as well and start out 0-3. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. It was standing room only at the kleptomaniacs meeting. All the chairs had been taken. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.